Hello and welcome to our first video. This one is titled Integer Operations. I'm Mr. Barnett, and if this is your first video, well, what we'd like to do is, if you have your notes that we've worked on integers, this is supposed to supplement it and just another way to look at some of the problems. So if you want, and then anywhere in the video you can hit pause like this, and then you can just hit play again. So by now, hopefully you have your notes out about integers. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some problems that you can add into your notes, look at what might, how we can use some of these problems, and then hopefully they'll help you when you're studying for tests and quizzes that we'll have in class. We're going to start with our first problem, and we're looking at adding and subtracting with integers. So our first problem starts at Sienna is an expert diver. She dives to 6 feet below sea level, then she dives deeper, 12 feet, to look at a turtle with a chainsaw. Must be real, it's in a word problem. She gets scared and swims up towards the surface, 14 feet. Write these occurrences as an integer expression, and then where does she end up? Alright, before we can attempt this problem, we need to go over the rules for adding and subtracting. I'm going to start with adding. And the rules for adding, what we need to ask ourselves with adding is, are the signs the same? Okay, so we're talking about adding integers just 2 at a time. If you're talking about 3 at a time, things change, but we're really just right now talking about 2 at a time. So the answer to that question can either be yes or no. Okay, so if the answer is yes, the signs of the 2 numbers we're adding the same, well, then we add. If the signs are not the same, then we subtract. And in both situations, we take the sign of, and I'm going to say bigger number here, but really what we're talking is about bigger absolute value. So we ignore the signs to determine which one is bigger, and then once we figure out which one is bigger, you take the sign of that for your final answer. Okay, just for a quick example, say we had -2 plus 6. So let's go through our questions. Are the signs of these 2 numbers the same? Well, this one's negative, this one's positive, so I would say no. So we are going to subtract. And 6 minus 2 is 4. And then now we go to our last part. We take the sign of the bigger number, looking at 2, looking at 6. Again, we're ignoring this negative, we're just looking at absolute values. 2 and 6. 6 is bigger than 2, 6 is positive, so our final answer is positive 4. Okay? Now, rules for subtracting are a little different. The key is there's only 2 situations we can have. We're either subtracting a negative or subtracting a positive. And what I mean by that, and again, still talking about just 2 numbers at a time. If we're, like for example, if we have 2 minus -3, can you see how there's a minus here and a minus here? There's minus a negative. That's subtracting a negative. Okay, well, what do? When we're subtracting a negative, we turn to add a positive. Okay, so going back to this example right here, 2 minus -3 would become 2. We're going to add a positive, 2 plus 3, which of course just equals 5. Or we could be subtracting a positive, and in that case we turn to add a negative. Add a negative. Okay, and really the rule for subtracting is add the opposite. That's just the easiest way to say it. We add the opposite. So for example, number 2, let's say 3 minus 7. Okay, we're going to turn this example, so this is example 1, this is example 2. Okay, 3 minus 7. In order to answer this, we're going to turn it to adding a negative because it falls under this one. So we're subtracting a positive. Okay? So if we were to add a negative, this will become 3 plus negative 7. Okay? And 3 plus negative 7, we follow our adding rules. Sign's not the same, so we subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4. Take the sign of the bigger number, so 7 or 3. Again, ignoring the sign, just looking at absolute value. 7 or 3, which one's bigger? 7 is bigger, and that number is negative, so we're going to take the sign of that, and our answer would be negative 4. Okay? So another thing to keep in mind with these is after you've either subtracting a negative and turn it to adding a positive, or subtracting a positive and turn it to adding a negative, we follow the addition rules. So the subtraction rules are really just a way to rewrite the problem to make it addition rules to follow what we've already followed before. So back to our problem and Sienna. A few things I want to talk about this problem. Because it mentions 6 feet below sea level, this is a great example of when we're going to talk about negative integers. Below sea level is negative integers. I think we can also kind of illustrate this with a number line, so I'm just going to draw that here. Because we can always model adding and subtracting integers on a number line. So she dives 6 feet below sea level. I'm going to put here, I'm going to make it 0, and this is going to be negative 6. Now, sometimes you want to make the individual marks. I'm not going to, so we can get the idea of where we are. This is where she starts in the problem. So she's going to dive right there. Okay? Then she dives deeper, 12 feet, to look at a turtle with a chainsaw. So let's think about that. If she's going deeper, that means it's going farther below sea level. So we're going to take this 12 feet deeper. You could draw an arrow. This is 12 feet, and 12 feet, if we were going to the left from where we were at negative 6, that would be, well, you know what, let's write this as an equation, and it might make it a little easier to see. So, watch out for our turtle with a chainsaw. Like we said, I guess it is real. So we started at negative 6, because we're 6 feet below sea level, and again, we're writing these occurrences as an integer expression. And then we're going to add negative 12, or you could subtract 12. Either way, both of those are going left on the number line. If we were to follow our rules, the signs are the same, so we would add, and this would give us negative 18. She gets scared and swims up towards the surface 14 feet. So this is actually going to go the other way. So what I would do in my operation is I would say plus 14. Both of these were negative. This is going in the opposite direction, so here she went down, down, and now swimming back up is going to be an opposite sign, or like with the number line. So we started here, we went to 18 there, now we're going to go up 14, which is not all the way to 0, but we'll put it right about there. And then the last part to answer, where does she end up, and where can I put this as a number? Well, let's just complete the problem. So like we said before, negative 6 and negative 12 would be negative 18. Now we add 14 here. Sign's not the same, so we subtract. 18 minus 14 equals 4. And we take the sign of the bigger number. In this case it's negative 18, so negative 4 is where we're going to end up, which is right here. And I'll put a stopping point right there. Okay? So that's how we can model that on a number line. There's your integer expression. So quick, take a brain break. We've done a lot of integer talk. We looked at adding and subtracting. If you're still not confused, go back and look at the word problem, see if you'd be able to solve it the same way, or come up with another way to do it, still getting the same answer. Okay? Of course, these brain breaks we put in here just to kind of get you change the subject a little bit, so you're not thinking about math as much, get a chance to process what you did. So I'm going to actually tell you to hit pause. I'm being for real. Hit the pause button, go back and look at what we did. I'll sit here and look at the shark. Alright, did it make more sense? Did it look better? Hopefully you took a second to go back and look at that material before. Alright, so now we're starting a new example. Kennedy is starting her own business. She sells snowman accessories to people in Florida. Brilliant, Kennedy. I bet that's going to work out great for you. For every kit she sells, she loses $3. Right now she has $50 in cash. Write an equation to show how much she has, sorry, didn't mean to slight you there, just left off the S, she has if she sells 5 kits. Is this a good business based on the numbers? Well, to answer that, we're going to have to look at rules for multiplying and dividing integers. Good news is that the rules are the same. We still ask ourselves the first question, like we did with adding, is are the signs the same? Now keep in mind, right now I'm talking about multiplying or dividing with 2 numbers. If you have more than 2 numbers in a row, it changes, and we'll talk about with multiplying how that we can make it a little easier. But for just 2 numbers at a time, you ask, are the signs the same? Only 2 answers to that, either yes or no. Okay, if the signs are the same, your answer is positive. If the answer is no, the answer is negative. Okay, so for example, real quick, say we have negative 12 divided by negative 3. Are the signs the same? Well, we have a negative and a negative, so that would be yes. That means when we divide here, our answer is going to come out positive. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and the answer is positive. Versus, say we have negative 6 times 2, and we multiply that like we would any other problem. 6 times 2 is 12, and then we go through our little decision tree here. So are the signs the same? We have a negative and a positive, so that's no, so that means the answer is going to come out negative. So our answer is negative 12. Okay? Now, this again applies to when you're multiplying 2 at a time, or dividing two integers at a time. Now, if you have, there's a kind of a quick rule. Say you had a bunch of numbers. So say we have like this. We have negative 3 times negative 2 times negative 1 times 6 times negative 7. Okay? And if you had to answer all of this, but someone just said, quick, tell me the answer. Is it going to be positive or negative? There's a really fast way to do it. Don't worry about putting it in the calculator, all that other stuff. Here's the fast way to do it. Count the negative signs. So when we're multiplying a string of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, how many are there? There are 4 negative signs. 4 is an even number, so if you have an even number of negative signs, the answer is going to come out positive. If you have an odd number of negative signs, the answer is going to come out negative, which also fits in with these rules here, if you think about it. Okay, so let's use those integer rules for multiplying and dividing for our word problem. Okay, well, there you go, Kennedy. That's nice. She's selling accessories to make the snowmen look really scary. Okay, so for every kit she sells, she loses $3. So right now she has $50 in cash. We want to write an equation in this problem, as it says right here. So if she sells 5 kits, all right, is this a good business based on the numbers? All right, so I'm going to start off with an equation. We know right now she has $50 in cash, so I'm going to start with that. And she loses $3 for every kit she sells. Okay, so we're going to, losing of course means subtracting 3. But that's if she would lose only $3 if she sold 1 kit. We don't know how many kits she's going to sell just yet. We could use an X, and of course that would be let's see how much she has in cash, so I'll just make that as C. But if we want to figure out how much she has in cash after selling 5, I'm going to substitute 5 in for that value of X, and I'm going to write 50 minus 3 times however many kits she sells, and in this problem it says 5 equals C, so we wrote an equation for it. So is this a good business based on numbers? Well, let's see. Our first number would be 50 minus 3 times 5. Following order of operations, we have to multiply before we can subtract, or we can treat this like a negative number. So negative 3 times 5. Either way, negative 3 signs are not same, so we are going to make the number comes out negative. So we have 50 minus 15 is C. In this case, she has sold 5 kits and she now has $35. Well, considering that she started with 50 and ended up with 35, I would say this is not a good business, because for every kit she sells, she loses $3. When we start talking about slope, you would say the slope of that line is -3, going down. Bad business. And it's time for a brain break. I think this is a hilarious article. I think you should take a second to read it. Norman, 78. This is real. This looks like almost. I looked at this and I first thought it was Chewbacca or something. Someone dressed up as a dog. But this is a dog that can scoot on a scooter. And that's crazy. So take a second to read the article. It'll give you a quick brain break. And then we'll come back. Alright, so that's it on integers. If you added to your notes, what I'd like to do is make sure those notes are summarized, because so take a second, read through all the things we did in this video and in the notes. Make sure you have it summarized, explain the rules, make sure you understand them, practice them enough so that you have them solid, and if there's ever a time that you forget, you can go back and listen to the video. Thank you, and I'll see you in class.